My name is Fox Mulder. I'm with the FBI. I know this is a hard time for you, but I'd like to ask you some questions.
My name's Tom Vale.
What can I do for you, Mr. Vale?
Nemesis. I can't believe it.
I'm Priscilla Hardaway, president of Hardaway Computers.
I know who you are.
Hi, I'm Karen Lorre, and I'm talking with Hayden Schade on Location Station.
Let's talk about Nowhere Man. You started an episode of that called Stay Tuned about 25, 26 years ago now. We made contact through a post that you made on Facebook. What made you post about Nowhere Man all these years later?
Well, the episode that we did on Nowhere Man was about a community where there was a politician who was using the television to sort of mesmerize and hypnotize everyone. And the whole town was believing in this guy and hypnotized by what he was saying and supporting everything he said. And he wasn't really a good guy. And now I don't know, in the world of politicians and stuff, I'm not a very political person, but just in general, sometimes there are things that are on TV, like maybe certain shows that talk about things that are negative in a way that hypnotize people to believe in things that don't serve their physiology or serve their lives. So that's why I was talking about it, just because the episode was so timely to now, when everybody saw the truth behind this person, when the hypnotic thing went away, the whole town like woke up. And I think a lot of people get sort of brainwashed by fear-inducing media. And I just think it's really important to be happy, because you think better when you're happy. And that's what the post was about.
What was it like working in Portland? I imagine you were shooting a lot of stuff in LA, and what was it like going to Portland?
Well, for me, it was extra special because two of my best friends live there. But I loved Portland. I just think it's a really sweet, very sweet town or city. And I loved the people I met. I had a great time there. It was lovely.
Remember, wherever you live is home.
It was just really like homey, if you will.
You had a lot of gratitude towards, I think that's just how you are generally, but towards the crew and the posts that you made. Can you maybe speak to that?
Yeah, well, I just feel super appreciative of people I work with in general. One of the things I teach now is how to appreciate everyone. There was one of the producers, his name was Peter Dunn. He was a sweet man. We're still a little connected. Really sweet guy, just very kind, very wise. I think he was one of the writers on this episode, and he was just really someone I liked. And Mel Damsky was the director, and we also stayed connected. He lives far away, so I don't see him, but we stayed connected, through email and text and whatnot every once in a while. And I just really enjoyed the crew in general. I find that people that are on crews in any show that I've been on are wonderful people, really amazing people, like thoughtful, kind, they work hard, they're doing so much good and so supportive and sweet, and they want the show to be thriving, and it's just, so I just have a tenderness towards crews in general.
At first glance, Darby is America's dream. A place we imagine from our youths and hope as adults to achieve. At first glance, Darby looks as if it could have been torn from the cover of Boy's Life magazine and set right down on God's green earth.
The episode starts in Derby. Everyone says hello to everybody. It's a picturesque, perfect town. Tom meets Jim Hubbard, who is running for governor.
I'm Jim Hubbard.
Tom Vale.
He's very much, who are you? What are you doing here? And then it's, stay a while. And this is a town where people take an interest in their neighbours and who they are. And it's almost like a vote for me kind of pitch. He's definitely in campaign mode. We're introduced to the brainwashing of the hometown network. Tom meets Michael, who tells him they've gotten to everybody.
You've got to get me out of here. Listen, if you don't believe me, ask Miss Cowan. She knows. She'll tell you.
Who's Miss Cowan?
The new English teacher. She'll tell you she knows.
Your first scene was meeting Bruce's character, Tom, in the school classroom. You two had an amazing chemistry in the show. What was it like working with Bruce Greenwood?
Well, come on. He's smart, he's talented, he's handsome, and he's generous as an actor. So it was, delightful.
If you're the new transfer student, then I'm much too young for this job.
No, my name's Tom Vale. You can rest easy. I was paroled a long time ago.
Okay, well, now that I feel appropriately youthful, what can I do for you, Mr. Vale?
Tom.
He's just a lovely man from what I remember. I mean, I only knew him that 1 week, but he knows how to connect, and he knows how to make people feel comfortable, and he knows how to make you feel like you belong and you're part of the show. He's just really generous in that way.
Did you feel like there was an element of you in that character? Because I sort of watched that character and then I, seen your posts and just, it feels like that's, a lot, there's pieces of you in there, it feels like.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of naturally a teacher. My parents were both teachers, and so playing a teacher is pretty easy for me. I've played quite a few teachers, and I'm a naturally kind of happy person generally. And in that show, that character got to be pretty happy. But I'm also a person who's very independent in my thinking, and so I don't always buy into what other people are talking about, even if there's some sort of authority. Generally, I don't necessarily buy into what a lot of authorities say. I tend to listen to my own inner wisdom and have my own experience so that I can thrive. And that's been my thing. I tend to thrive when I listen to my own inner guidance. And that's what that character was doing until she accidentally got mesmerized.
Walking the school halls, you give Bruce's character the rundown on Darby, describing it as greeting card picture perfect 24 hours a day. You pull down Hubbard's campaign poster and mention a quote that is used multiple times throughout the episode by different characters. Jim Hubbard's the
best thing to come down the pike in years.
My question for you is, why isn't Jim Hubbard the best thing to come down the pike in years?
Well, I mean, just as you're watching the show, you can tell, at least I could tell, that this guy was being manipulative and overly charming, and not, the character had a really good sense that there was something about him that was not right, that there, even though it was greeting card picture perfect in that town, it something wasn't right. And you can feel it because there's a genuine, when somebody's actually happy, you feel the energy. When somebody's playing happy, it's a different thing. And that's something that's really important for me as a person, but it was also important for that character that I was playing to perceive things on a deeper level.
We get to see a little bit more of the town. The people Tom is staying with are devoted Hubbard fans. The entire neighborhood is out cleaning the street at 9:30 at night.
Do you believe me now?
The political message is broadcast throughout the school. Everyone watches it 24/7. This guy's like on everything. You visit the campaign headquarters with Tom, who trips the fire alarm. This sequence is told without dialogue, and it's just between the looks between the two of you.
All right, folks, let's all go to the door. Get your coats.
You mentioned that Bruce is very easy to connect with. Can you maybe speak a little bit more to this, of why you think that is?
He's super present. So he gives you eye contact, and you can read what he's sending you through the eye contact. And that's something I love in general. But when somebody's a good actor like he is, they're super present. They have really good eye contact, and they communicate through their eyes in a way that you feel it. And he's great at that. And I love playing with that. To me, that's super fun. Like, it was just fun.
Basically, you get caught by Jim Hubbard in the campaign office.
Did you find anything?
Yeah, but I don't know what it is. Yeah.
Well, would you mind going along with these gentlemen, please? I think they'd like a word.
Tom is then forced to watch the TV and becomes one of them, as does your character, albeit off screen. When we see you both again, it's in the campaign headquarters folding, papers for Jim Hubbard.
It's a beautiful day, beautiful girl. What could be better?
If I am to do this, you must give us legislators the power to
Love beginning to notice.
What?
make laws that will bring us back to greatness.
Well, I mean, I can hardly blame them. You're hard not to look at.
You?
We have espoused and demanded.
This is maybe perhaps a good time to share some of the thoughts of the creator and writer of the show. The late Larry Herzog, he had a few thoughts just about it. He just said that he got a laugh out of the anaesthetized, blissed out looks on the faces of the people watching the TV, almost as if they were in a zombified haze. He said the drama in the episode is who can survive the brainwashing, who's under the influence, who isn't. The kid is the holdout who is hoping he can connect with someone who hasn't been influenced, which brings him to Tom and to your character. He said in some ways Stay Tuned is as much a look at the kind of world that some people desire than it is a look at mind control. Darby reminded him of towns he watched on TV growing up. It's a Norman Rockwell world that we're all supposed to desire, but look what's going on behind it. So can you what do you sort of make of that analysis?
Well, different entities pick a narrative that they repeat over and over, and you can see it, if you watch certain shows, you see the same narrative over and over and over again. I don't even own a TV because I realized for myself, I love being on TV, but I just realized for myself years ago when I was in my 20s, I think, or even my teenager years, I realized that I don't want someone else, whether it's a show or a news thing or whatever, I don't want someone else to program my mind. I want to program my mind. And so I really, that was one of the reasons why I was so enthusiastic about doing this particular episode of Nowhere Man, because it was something that to me, I had already recognized how we could get mind controlled. I would see people, like even in my family, just like watching the TV, and they'd be like not present. And I never wanted that. I always loved that feeling of being really present and being here, being connected. And so that's something that just is important to me. It's a value that I've had forever that I can remember.
What the hell is going on?
Gestures. Now you have to listen to me now. This is a hoax. What I'm telling you is the truth. I want to know who's responsible for this.
Why bother what?
Having elections.
No, ladies and gentlemen, let me explain. This is an obvious attempt for somebody to try to confuse the issues and pollute the campaign. This is a terrible way for someone to try to keep the truth from coming out. This
Free elections. It's an illusion. Nobody's free.
The brainwashing is eventually exposed. The campaign headquarters is graffitied and trashed, and you all confront Jim Hubbard one last time.
Good show, Jim.
You really think you've accomplished something, don't you? You really think you've stopped this?
Stopped you. Your friends will see to it.
You're a fool, Vale. You're a fool. It doesn't matter what happens to me. You can't stop them. They're just getting started.
So what was that all about?
I guess he thought some people would believe anything.
In the final scene, Tom is about to hitch a ride out of town, as the big trucks for the hometown network go blasting by.
It was so interesting to be around these other actors who were playing hypnotized. They did a great job, and it's a turnoff, It's a turnoff. It's so fun to be present, and I think that's the energy of the show, and the energy of the cast was something that for me really made, enhanced my own desire to be more present in general.
Why do you think Nowhere Man still has a cult following 25, 26 years later?
I think maybe just because Bruce Greenwood is incredible. He's a really fine actor. He's a really likable person. He's just really talented. He's easy to look at. He's fun. He's kind. He has so much. He's really talented, and I think it's just maybe partly his allure. And then, I think it's always that people like conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff, and that's part of what that show was about, from what I understand, even though I never really watched it a lot because, like I said, I don't have a TV by choice.
Another juggernaut of a series in the 90s was Hercules. You played the character of Nemesis in an episode. It must be nice going so far afield from LA. We were talking about Portland before, but now you're down here in New Zealand. What was that like?
Oh, I fell in love with New Zealand. I wanted to move there. I thought New Zealand was just so beautiful and everybody was so kind and friendly and sweet. I still have friends I made who live in New Zealand that I met when I was on Hercules. So it was really fun, and it's just so beautiful and verdant and the ocean, and I loved it. That trip, it was so interesting. This was so funny. It just is like a weird thing for me. So I was a flying trapeze artist. I loved flying trapeze, and when we were filming in Surfer's Paradise, and then oh no, that's a different show. That was Flipper. Never mind. But New Zealand, in New Zealand, the WH spells an F, makes an F. And we went to Whakatane Bay. And we were laughing so hard because I think Tawny Katane was coming for the next episode, or she was there somewhere for some other show or something. I can't remember exactly what. But when we heard the name of this bay called Whakatane Bay, where we went swimming with dolphins and we went into the hot springs and all that kind of stuff, everybody just laughed. And that was just like a huge thing of using the playing with pronunciation of things. That was just fun. And everybody on that show was funny and fun and easy to play with. I really enjoyed it.
I love how you just slipped in there about how you're a trapeze artist. Like, I think that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about how that came to be.
This is so trippy. Okay, so when I was a kid, there was a guy, we were in the same school and he was in my grade, and he would light matches onto me while I walked to school. He would ride his bike and light matches on me, and I was scared of him. And I dreamed as a kid of flying the trapeze, so I could fly over this guy, and just fly all the way to school. And so I dreamed of that. And then years later, I moved to New York. I was doing a show called One Life to Live, which was a soap opera. And a friend of mine said, hey, there are people at Cirque du Soleil. They're going to be in New York. He had taken me to Cirque du Soleil in Los Angeles when it first opened up, and I loved it. And I was already an acrobat. And so he introduced me to these Cirque du Soleil people. And then they said, every once in a while, we let people come fly the trapeze after the show. Do you want to come? And I was like, yes. And so they let me come to the show. I could come to the show any night I wanted. So I went a lot, and I knew the show and I knew a lot of the people. And then one night they said I could fly. And when I did fly on their trapeze, they showed me what to do and everything. They said, vous êtes doué pour le trapèze, which meant, you have a natural talent for the trapeze, which made sense because I was a gymnast and an acrobat. And then they told me how to go train in Paris. So I did, and I trained in Paris. And then every time Cirque du Soleil was either in New York or Toronto or Montreal, and my schedule allowed, I would either work out with them at night or fly to Montreal or Toronto for a weekend, because I was working on this soap opera, so I couldn't do it all the time, but I just loved it so much. So I became friends with a lot of the people there. I'm still friends with the stage manager, who's the one who offered it to me. And it was just really fun. And then when I moved back to Los Angeles, there's another guy who, he now lives in Vegas, but at the time he had a whole flying trapeze. And I would fly with all those people. I met my best friend, one of my best friends for there, flying trapeze. And yeah, it's fun. I flew for 7 years.
What was the cast and crew like to work with on Hercules?
It was fun. I was in an acting class with Kevin's, I think it was his girlfriend, Sam, but now it's his wife. So I knew about, I knew a little bit about him from her, and he was funny, He's super smart. He's super entrepreneurial, and I just really enjoyed him. I enjoyed the whole cast and crew, and I was playing a goddess of death, but still a goddess, so that was fun. And I just enjoyed everybody. The crew was all Kiwi and Maori, and so they were just great, very welcoming, very kind, very sweet.
The character was reprised later, but by another actress. Do you remember why? Was it just scheduling conflicts of not coming back to play the character again?
Yeah, I think it was a scheduling thing. I think I had gotten other jobs and was out of town and wasn't available, and so they had to hire someone else. I remember my agent saying, oh, they want you for this, but you're already working on this. And so I didn't really hear much about it, but I think later people said, how come you didn't do it? And I think that's why. It was just a scheduling. I was already working somewhere else.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these shows were all around the same time, at least the same year or 18 months or so that those shows would have been on. So it's sort of like, I imagine you have been quite busy working throughout that period. What was the best memory of doing Hercules?
To be on the canoe with Hercules, because I love the ocean and I love canoeing and kayaking and sailing and all that stuff. But today, and it was New Zealand.
What if you could travel to parallel worlds, the same year, the same Earth, only different dimensions?
Let's talk about Sliders. You were in an episode called The Good, the Bad and the Wealthy, which can be best described as Wall Street meets the Old West.
They've got a stock ticker hanging over the bar. What's the deal with this place?
It looks like the Wild West, but everybody's driving modern cars.
Do you have any fun memories of Sliders?
Yeah, I do. Actually, the kid, he's not a kid anymore, but the young man who played my son on the show.
Hi, fella.
They're here, Mom. I told you they were at the hotel. Jamie?
He was, I think, 8 years old or 11 or something like that. He was really into Wayne Dwyer, and I was meditating a lot. So we just talked about spiritual things, and I was so impressed with how well-versed he was in everything. He quoted Wayne Dwyer the whole time. He had like this impeccable memory about it, and he was just so excited as a little kid. And I thought, what a cool thing for this kid to know that at this age, And I just thought, how beautiful that he's already on a spiritual path and loves it and is passionate about it at that age. Touched my heart, really. I fell in love with that kid.
I told you they were angels, Mom. Now do you believe me? Yeah, I believe you, Jamie.
It's over.
How can I ever thank you?
Look out for yourself. I want you to know that it takes a stronger man to put a gun down than it does to fire it in anger. Can you remember that?
I think so.
What was the cast like to work with, the main cast? Do you have any specific memories of working with Jerry O'Connell, John Rhys-Davies, Sabrina Lloyd, and Clavant Derricks?
Jerry O'Connell was super, super generous. They were all great. They all had a sense of humor. They were all very comfortable, inviting, welcoming. I just felt very embraced by them. They were just a really great group. They liked each other. They liked being on the show. They were having a lot of fun, and they were inclusive. They were inviting, and that felt really just lovely.
I guess you did allude to it before, but coming in as a guest star on any show that's like, someone's described it to me before, like it's like you're hopping on board a moving train, like you're, as a guest star in that sort of situation. I guess because you did lots of guest spots on different shows, like what was that like, just coming into an already existing thing, and you have to know all your stuff and you have to be up to speed and you have to just go?
Well, I had worked on a soap opera for 4 years before I started doing a lot of guest stars. I'd done a few movies before I did the soap opera, but basically that was one of my first. Maybe I did like 5 movies before that, but I'd never really done a lot of guest stars, just a few. And once I did the soap opera, and I was the one that was always there, and now people were coming in, and I could see how nervous they would get. And these be Broadway stars or movie stars. Lots of great people were coming to be guests on the soap opera, and I just thought, oh, I want to welcome them and make them feel really comfortable, because when you're afraid, you can't do good work, And so that background for me set me up so that I knew to come in comfortable. And I generally like people, and I love acting, and I love meeting new people. I love the adventure of doing a new character. So all of those things made it really effortless for me in that sense. It was like, I like auditioning. I like acting. I like meeting new people. I like being on the set. I like, doing the scenes. I like the actual acting part. I like having connection with people. I like exploring new places. I like traveling. I like adventure. So all of that is something that is part of my nature.
I really appreciate that. That's something that not a lot of people would do or would be as aware of.
Yeah, I would love to share this, because I went one time, my friend, her name was Shirley Knight. She was a lot older, and she was an actress. And I went to see her in a play that Joanne Woodward was directing. And this was like when I was barely at the very beginning of acting. And after the play, Shirley introduced me to Joanne Woodward. And Joanne, I'm going to start crying. Joanne Woodward, I was 23, 4, not very old. And she just gave me so much respect and asked me about my acting and asked me about what I wanted, and was very encouraging and kind. And I remember walking out of there, and I thought, if I ever get, successful, I want to be like her. I want to be as gracious and as kind and as generous and as elegant as she was. So that just never left me. It still is something that I hold as a marker of how I want to be in the world.
I was watching some of your stuff on the TV the other night, and my wife, she just stopped and just looked, and she said, she's very sweet, talking about you, like how sweet you are, and I guess a lot of people, I've listened to some of the other interviews that you've done, and even just your dealings with me, just this random guy from Facebook of like, hey, this show from like 25 years ago, let's talk about it. And you're so welcoming and so respectful. And I look through all the comments on your like when people write to you, you write back to them. Like a lot of people forget that connection, because it may just be that you're on TV to somebody, you're on a show, or you're on a podcast that they listen to, but people feel connected to you through that, and that's a powerful thing.
Yeah, and when you're on a show, especially like on the soap opera, or when I was on another series, I was on a Showtime series, you're in people's living room on a consistent basis, or their bedroom, and you're part of their world. And so people have relationships with you and you might not ever have met them, but to me, it's so beautiful to be part of their world, to be part of their life, and to give entertainment or fun or comedy or comfort or drama or something that hopefully enhances their life.
I guess this sort of segues well into the X-Files, because the character that you played in that was that was a more emotionally charged role. The other ones were a bit more fun or a bit more, traditional. But this one was very, emotionally charged. You're being stalked by that Giovanni Ribisi character.
He told me that he had powers, dangerous powers.
When was this?
Right after the last boy was killed.
In real life, as a kid, I got stalked. And so it was really easy for me to play that character. And I loved working with Giovanni and with Duchovny and with Gillian and Jack Black. I think it was one of Jack Black's first shows. And I remember walking past his trailer, and his door was open, and I said hi, and he was there with his dad, and he was really naive and innocent and young, and his dad was trying to comfort him, and it was just so sweet, and to see how he's shifted. And Giovanni and I were in an acting class, I think after I did that, or before, I'm not sure if it was before or after, but we were in an acting class at some point, and he's so talented. And it was really fun to work with him because I knew him before the show, but now it's getting mixed up. I'm not sure if I knew him before the show or after the show, but he was really in the character. Vonnie never left the character while we were in the show. He did it in a really more method kind of way. But I really enjoyed it. I loved working on that show, and it was in Vancouver, and Vancouver is such a beautiful city, and I loved the people in Vancouver as well.
I imagine that show, because it was always so much stuff at night, you were just shooting like a 12-hour or 16-hour day, like overnight, basically. Was it something like that from what you remember?
Yeah, it was a lot of night and stuff, but I was used to it when I was on that soap opera. We worked 14 to 16 hours a day, and I still did acrobatics at Central Park at lunch. So there was a lot, but yeah, we worked a lot at night. There was one experience I had on that show that was really just not a normal thing that happened. I was in a scene with Duchovny was not in the scene. I was leaving the hospital room that my husband was in to walk across to get some water. And in the scene, we had just run it, and somebody had spilled water on the white linoleum floor, and nobody saw it. I didn't see it. So they say action, and I get ready to go, and I'm wearing shoes that are slick. And I step into this puddle, and my feet go flying back, and Duchovny is off camera, and he runs in, and he grabs underneath my head, and stops me, because I was going flat on my back, stops me from hitting my head. And the whole crew cheered, right? He was like the hero. And I was so appreciative, because that would have been a pretty intense, I was going down fast, and he just moved so quickly. I think he was really into that role in a way, of like, got to take care of things. And he really took care of it in a way that just felt, I just was so thankful. And we became friends after that. When somebody saves your life like that, or saves your head anyway, in your brain, we became friends. We were just friends on the show. I don't know him beyond, but it opened up a deeper connection.
Your character was trying to protect her husband, so it was sort of, can you maybe talk a little bit about playing that and just what it was like watching those scenes again? Because you're in that, like when I'm watching that, you're right there.
There was two things going on where that character, Mrs. Kavit, she wanted to protect her husband, but she also wanted to protect her student, because she felt he was so damaged, and that he was, had something going on, and she was also afraid of him. So there was like three different things going on for that character.
Darren.
Mrs. Kavit.
Stop. I'm warning you. I want you to step back inside that room.
Are you coming with me, Mrs. Kavit?
She's not going anywhere with you, Darren.
I can hurt you.
I can hurt you too. I'm gonna give you 3 seconds. 1.
Now I'm done fooling around now!
Stop it! I'll go with you. Just stop it.
Sharon, we can work this all out right here.
No, we can't.
All right.
It was very much about wanting to protect my husband, because I knew that character, that Giovanni's character, he could just cause my husband to have a heart attack. He was sending energy, and I knew it because he'd already explained it to me. So I was feeling haunted. I was feeling afraid. I was feeling protective of my husband, and also like, how do we help this kid? You know, because I was his teacher. So yeah, it was an intense show. It was a fun show.
Was it like, you know, when you get that role, this is big, or your agent is like, this is the greatest thing ever, or whatever?
Yeah, I was just really excited. But I'm kind of excited every time I get a job. But I really loved it. I was surprised that I got the job at the audition. This is what's so funny. There's so many weird connections with that particular show. At the audition, the casting director was Rick Milliken. I went to Milliken High School. So after I got the job, my dad went to Milliken and bought like Milliken t-shirts and hats and stuff to give to Rick, just to say thank you, right? So I sent it to him, and he says, oh, by the way, the high school you went to is named after my grandpa, Robert A. Milliken, who was a physicist or an engineer or something. And I was like, oh, that's so trippy, you know? So Rick ended up casting me later in another show for Showtime called Bedtime, which was a series, and I was a series regular on that for just maybe it was 12 episodes. I can't remember how many episodes. It only went one season, but it was really fun. And then Chris Carter, after I did the show, I was with my family, and I have an aunt. She's dead now, but she used to smoke. And she's at the house, and she's like, so you did the X-Files, huh? And she used to be a teacher. And I said, oh yeah, I did the X-Files. And she goes, doesn't that boy, Chris Carter, didn't he create that show? I said, yes, yeah, he was the creator. I didn't meet him, but he was the creator. I mean, I met him at the audition, but he wasn't in Vancouver. And she goes, he was my student, and he was trouble. Trouble. Tell him Mrs. Lambro says hello, and I'm proud of him. And so I just thought that was hilarious, you know, and I just thought how weird that he went to my aunt's school, and, you know, and that he was trouble. So I wrote a thank you letter to him. And then a couple weeks later, I was out to lunch with a girlfriend, and she said, I think that's Chris Carter behind you. And I said, where? And she goes, don't look. And so I looked, and he was with a whole group of guys, and he stood up and he goes, Karen, he goes, I got the letter. He goes, I love Mrs. Lambro. And so he and I have become friends. He's endorsed 2 of my books, really because of my Mrs. Lambro. And he wrote another show. It actually didn't go. It was a movie, and I think he ended up getting sick, so he didn't finish the movie. But we filmed it, and I played Mrs. Lambro, which was a teacher in this particular film. So he wrote Mrs. Lambro's part for me.
That's great. That's an awesome story. That was literally the next thing I was going to ask you about, which was, you know, that he wrote such a nice testimonial on your website. What is it like to get that kind of positive testimonial?
I just feel so thankful. I feel so appreciative and so thankful. And Chris has been super supportive. A bunch of other people that have been supportive, like Deepak Chopra has given me incredible support and endorsed my first book and had me on one of his podcasts. And Bruce Lipton gave me so much support, and he actually gave me he wrote a really great endorsement for me, but Bruce Lipton is a cellular biologist actually, but I spent time with his wife and him in New Zealand. But he and I had an email conversation because I was asking about mirror neurons and subconscious beliefs and programming. And so we had this whole conversation via email that he said I could put in my 3rd book, which is a chronic pleasure in relationships. So Bruce Bruce, he's just like really supportive too. So, I mean, I just feel like I just feel so supported. It's just beautiful. I feel so thankful.
Tell me about how acting helped you understand what you studied in college and how it led you to life coaching.
So when I was in college, I'd been fascinated even before college, since I was a kid, with mind-body medicine. It was just barely beginning, but I got interested in it because every time I didn't want to go to school, my mom would say, Karen, did somebody hurt your feelings, or are you upset, or are you afraid of something? And then once I would say whatever it was, I wouldn't have the symptoms of being sick, and then she'd make me go to school. And I didn't like it as a kid, but it really opened my mind to how much our mind must be affecting our body. So I studied that in college, and I was fascinated with it. I was just obsessed with it. I used to actually go, when I was in high school, I would ditch school to go to the beach to read mind-body science. I was just fascinated with it. Then I ended up getting all these acting jobs, and I started to do acting. And what was so interesting is I watched how my physiology shifted with each new character I played. For example, this was so trippy. I played on that soap opera, One Life to Live. I played Tina. Tina got pregnant, and I was wearing a leotard with a pillow, and acting pregnant, rubbing my belly, and I lived in New York when we were doing this show, and it's really hard in New York, to take off this, they should have had it with snaps, but they didn't. It was a leotard that you had to pull everything on and everything off. So I ended up, it was, you wear 12 layers to go out, and it was just too hard to take everything off and put everything on and everything, because you'd have the belly on. So I'd go to lunch with the belly, and people would say, oh my God, you're pregnant. And I'd say, no, I'm just an actress. And they'd look at me with, horror and condemnation. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to say that anymore. So then they'd say, oh, you're pregnant, congratulations. I'd say, thank you. And I just started to be that, I didn't want to have this whole conversation about, I'm acting and it's a role and it's too hard to take off the leotard. So I just started playing it more and more. 4 or 5 months into it, the wardrobe girl comes into my dressing room with my normal bra I wear and a dress I wear, and I can't fit in it. And I was like, oh my God. And she goes out to get a new bra, and I'm thinking, I believed I was pregnant. And I just was like, oh, this is so trippy. And so acting, I saw it in all these other roles as well, but that one was so significant because she saw it as well, and it was like obvious that we had to get a whole new bra. But I saw it over and over and over again. And I also saw people who wanted to get pregnant, but they couldn't have kids. I just, so many actors at that when you're on a show for a long time. And what would happen is if one or both, could be the man or the woman, either one, if they got a play or a TV show where they were playing a parent, they would get pregnant. And I thought, and this was before, I don't think they were doing much in vitro, maybe they were, but it was the belief system that they had a kid, and now they could have, now they could actually have a kid.
You said in an interview once that I listened to that you chose acting because it meant that you were constantly going to be going on adventures through those characters. Can you maybe speak to that?
Yeah, I was pre-med, so my intention was to become a doctor. But when I kept learning about doctors and meeting doctors, I saw that they were railroaded into certain belief systems that were linear, and that there wasn't that magic ingredient that is possible that was allowed to be addressed in medicine at the time. So when I got my first few acting jobs, and then I thought, well, I should take an acting class. And when I took this acting class, I just felt, when that light shines upon you and you're like vibrating and oh my God, this is the best feeling I've ever had. That's what it felt like. And I remember I was dealing, do I become a doctor? Do I become an actor? What do I do? And I was trying to decide. And then I heard a voice that said, do you want a linear life, or do you want a life adventure? And I was literally just driving, and I thought, oh, adventure, because adventure is something that I've always, that's like one energy that is my energy. It's just like always something that's key for me. And so the minute I said that, I got clarity, and then the whole acting world opened up for me. I mean, it was like the whole universe was saying, okay, if you want to do that, we're going to take you on that trip. It doesn't matter whether it's acting or anything. Part of the reason I coach my clients is because I now know that when you're in a state of joy, when you're in a state of love, when you feel free, when you feel happy, when you feel fully yourself, fully self-expressed, everything's easier. And so I had that naturally. I still had trauma growing up. I had a lot of trauma, but I was also kind of a sunny energy just naturally. And so I do think it opened doors. And I think that anybody can have that. That's part of why I coach people, is because I know how doors open up when you're happy on a consistent level. And then to share that and watch other people get it, especially people who think they can't have it because they're of a certain age, or they look a certain way, or they're a certain race, but to watch them realize, oh, they can have that magic in their life. They can have that power. They can have that ability to attract wonderful things. It's not specific just to one person. It's just a path that once you learn how to do it, everyone can do it.
Do you think that trauma, especially, whilst it sort of can lead you down two different paths, like a path of self-destruction or a path of kind of maybe enlightenment towards the end, you know? Do you think that trauma of whatever kind, once worked through, can make you so much more appreciative of just day to day?
Yeah, I did do both paths. I did the path of self-destruction, and I don't like that path. I don't recommend it. But then I've learned how to heal stuff, because nobody could help me heal. I went to therapy for 30 years, and it didn't help, you know. And I went to psychiatrists, and it didn't help. And I went to all these different healers, and it didn't help. And it wasn't until I shifted stuff that I learned how to heal myself, and I healed every single one. And yes, because of healing it, I mean, I'm in a state of profound appreciation and thankfulness all day long.
Describe some of the ways that your coaching has helped people.
Gosh, it's just amazing. People, you know, as they coach with me, their physiological body, their health gets better. They start to have better relationships. Life becomes simpler and more relaxed. They start to be in the right place at the right time, and things that are right for them show up. They get better, you know, really better relationships with their children, with their parents, with their coworkers. It doesn't matter. You know, it's just their whole life starts to shift. Part of what I teach people how to really be empowered. And so I get to watch people literally learn how to shift their bodies into a healthier state, learn how to shift their subconscious mind. And actually we do it in the coaching, where they can shift on a deep level, actually in the coaching, so they have an experience of it and they know what it's like. That is like one of my favorite things. As a kid, I always loved it when somebody thought they couldn't do something and then they could do it. I always thought that was so beautiful when somebody realized, oh, I can do something. And so that's something that I still really like, that feeling of, oh, you think that you're stuck here, but here's where you're free. And here's how to access that real freedom. Or you think you've been too damaged to have what you want, but we can unlock it and give you the power back. And now you can start attracting what you want. It's beautiful. It makes me so happy. It also has a lot of adventure to it, because every person is unique. And so there's a lot of me getting to understand new things and get new ideas and watch people transform. It's so delicious.
The last thing I guess I want to end with is not really about TV or anything like that, but I guess what if you had, I mean, there's people that are going to be watching this that have seen you on a show or seen you in a movie or seen you in something and connected with you in some way, or listened to you on a podcast, or they follow you, have read your books. Is there a message that you have for them?
I have so many messages. I'm in the process of writing a one-woman show because I love acting so much. And so I'm just in that process. I'm on I got my edits back from my editor, the first edits, and I'm on my first edits of their edits. So it's super exciting, and I can't wait to be acting again, and it's going to have a lot of healing stuff in it. So it's really fun. I'm really excited about it. But what I would say is, first, if you haven't read my book, you can go to chronicpleasureyt.com, and there's 3 books on there, and you can get all of them. That's part of my message in those books. And it's really a message of, in general, the actual message is, doesn't matter where you are, who you are, how old you are, what race you are, whatever you've experienced, it's possible to have the life you've dreamed of if you're willing to invest time and energy and all that stuff in yourself. It's totally possible. And so my books give you the path on how to do that. My podcast is at chronicpleasurepodcast.com. It's on YouTube, Spotify, wherever, Amazon, all those places, Apple. So you can get the podcast as well. But basically, it's me. I'd say the biggest thing I want people to understand is that nothing's impossible, and that it doesn't matter where you are coming from, you can get to where you want to go.
Thank you so much for this, Karen. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayden. You too. Please tell your wife thank you. I really felt touched by what she said. That was really beautiful.